All right, let's dive right into this explainer and completely demystify the intimidating learning curve of the Immortal Realm PvP Mage. We're going to turn it into a clear, actionable roadmap for surviving Felucca. So if you're finally ready to trade the relative safety of player versus environment gameplay for the open, incredibly high-stakes combat of the Felucca rule set, well, you're in the exact right place. We're going to break down the skills, the gear, and the strategies you need to actually thrive out there.
But before we even step foot in the danger zones, we've got to address the most common dilemma players face right off the bat. Do you play as a pure mage, or do you pivot to the dark arts as a necromage? It's really the foundational question for this entire template, and honestly, understanding the difference here is absolutely key to your survival on the battlefields.
To get us there, here's our roadmap for today. 1. Welcome to Felucca. 2. The core skill blueprint. 3. The training path. 4. Gearing for war. 5. Surviving PvP threats. And 6. Immortal Realm systems.
Kicking things off with Section 1. Welcome to Felucca. You know, what's really fascinating here is the sheer commitment required. Playing a PvP caster is mechanically hard. It is heavily reflex-driven. Just getting your character to a basic working state takes about 40 to 60 hours. But look at that time to become truly competitive, 100 to 200 hours. Reading guides only goes so far in the Immortal Realm. You are literally going to need hundreds of hours of active sparring in low-stakes duels to actually build the muscle memory you need to survive.
Moving right along to Section 2, the core skill blueprints.
So, back to that dilemma we mentioned, there's a really distinct split in playstyles here. A pure mage utilizes anatomy and healing, meaning you're heavily reliant on bandages. It's arguably easier to learn and is exactly where a lot of new PvP players start. However, the Necromage variant is for sure the more common advanced choice. By swapping in Necromancy and Spirit Speak, you gain access to some absolutely devastating tools. We're talking Wither for area of effect drains, Curse Weapon, and Vampiric Embrace, which gives you these incredible self-healing through damage mechanics. It's a real game changer. Now, the crucial point is how you allocate your stats to support those skills. Unlike PvE mages, who might maximize intelligence at the expense of everything else, PvP casters must heavily prioritize hit points. You are targeting exactly 100 strength, giving you the massive HP pool needed to stay alive. Why? Well, because in Felucca, the first thing to die loses. Simple as that. You pair that with 100 intelligence for your mana pool and regeneration, which leaves your dexterity sitting at 25, literally just enough to physical function. To hit your hard 700 skill cap as a necromage, you'll need this exact distribution. You've got Magery and Evaluating Intelligence at 100 for your primary damage and scaling. Meditation at 100 is vital for mana regeneration. Resist spells at 100 keeps you alive against enemy casters. And then there's Wrestling at 100. Let me be clear, this is an absolute, non-negotiable necessity to prevent your spells from being constantly disrupted when an opponent gets right up in your face. Finally, you cap the whole shebang off with 100 in both Necromancy and Spirit Speak for your self-heals and debuffs. That brings us to Section 3, the training path. Knowing your skills is one thing, but this 6-stage blueprint perfectly structures your 200-hour journey. You don't just try to train everything at once, right? First, you build your Mage core, Magery, Eval, and Med to 80. Then you immediately pivot to survival by pushing resist spells to 80 and maxing out Wrestling to 100 so you can actually cast safely. Only then do you bring up your Necromancy skills. Once all of those hit 100, you are finally ready for your first real duels. But the journey doesn't end there, because Stage 6 introduces the real endgame grind, Power Scrolls. Let's define these exactly so we're all on the same page. Power Scrolls are incredibly valuable items that drop from Felucca champion spawns. They push your skill caps from 100 up to 105, 110, 115, or even 120. That takes your overall skill total well beyond the standard 700. While you technically can start dueling without them, honestly, you'll be at a severe disadvantage against scrolled opponents. Planning to secure power scrolls from Magery, Eval, and resist spells within your first 6 months is exactly why serious PvP mages always end up actively fighting in Felucca champion spawns. Okay, moving to Section 4, Gearing for War. Your skills are great, but they'll only keep you alive if you have the right equipment. You need a full PvP mage suit loaded with very specific attributes. We're talking high mana attribute armor for mana increase, mana regeneration, and critically lower mana cost. You'll equip a Slayer or augmented PvP spellbook, a charged combat or vanquishing utility wand, what we usually just call a Vank wand, and your Necromancy spellbook. And don't forget your time-woven augmentation. Now, why so much focus on mana? Well, because in a duel, if you are out of mana, you are essentially dead. Every single piece of gear has to earn its keep by serving these specific stat priorities. Again, HP via strength is high priority. But mana regen, and lower mana cost, those are critical. Your magical economy absolutely must outlast your opponent's burst damage. Lower Regent cost is helpful, sure, for sustainability and longer fights, but let's be real, it doesn't replace the need to carry your own physical supplies. Which brings us to this massive number, 5,000 plus. This right here is the hidden, logistical, and frankly, wallet-breaking cost of PvP on the Immortal Realm. As a PvP caster, you will burn through reagents incredibly fast, much faster than PvE players. You literally must keep around 500 of each reagent, including your bat wings and daemon bones, in your pack at all times. And on top of that, you have to maintain a massive reserve of 5,000 plus of each in your bank. It's also highly recommended to keep inscription scrolls on hand for those desperate emergency casts. Which leads us perfectly into Section 5, Surviving PvP Threats. Now that you're built and geared, how do we actually stay alive? By directly tying a solution to every single problem. If you're being disrupted on every cast, that's exactly where your 100 rustling and your suit attributes save you. Facing a heavy mana drain, your 100 meditation and your lower mana cost gear, often abbreviated as LNC, keep you casting. Dealing with anti-magic players requires smart positioning, spamming buffs, and sometimes even closing the gap to force a physical wrestle. And the biggest threat out there? Groups. A solo player will almost always lose to a coordinated team. The mitigation strategy there is pretty simple. Always run with allies. Finally, let's wrap up with Section 6, Immortal Realm Systems. You see, a PvP caster doesn't just exist in a vacuum. Your build dictates your entire life on the server. Because you're built specifically for player combat, you are going to constantly interact with the bounty hunting system. Mages are very common crown writ targets, and hunters. You'll also engage with the Velvet Hand for writ disruptions. The civic justice system is huge because gaining murderer status fundamentally alters your gameplay. And crucially, we have to talk about Mortal Shock. Intense PvP nights cause this debilitating effect to stack up insanely fast, meaning you absolutely must find and maintain a contact with a Surgeon to recover. But hey, remember, your journey is completely flexible. Nothing is permanent. If the Necromage playstyle just isn't clicking for you, you can always respec. You can drop Necromancy and go right back to a pure mage with anatomy and healing. Or maybe you want to get highly specialized into a Bushido and Magery hybrid. Or, honestly, if the stress of the Felucca life proves too much, you can always retire from PvP entirely and pivot your stats back to a PvE mage build. You are never locked in. Ultimately, this explainer provides the blueprint. It gives you the gear requirements, the skill priorities, the whole picture. But when you are totally out of mana, when the mortal shock sets in, your regents are running low, and you're staring down a coordinated group, will your 200 hours of reflex training actually be enough? Only you can answer that final question when you step out onto the battlefield. So stay sharp out there and happy hunting.